Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Alison. I write as Alice Sinclair and Alison May and as half of Juliet Bell, and I make YouTube videos about writing and publishing and anything else that catches my attention. In today's video we are going to be talking about story bibles. What's a story bible and why are we talking about it? Well, about a couple of weeks ago, I posted on my Facebook account this post, which basically is me remonstrating with my past self for not starting a story Bible when I wrote the first book in the series that I'm currently writing book 2 in. This series here, book 1 is out in January. And I posted on Facebook basically saying, "Stupid past Alison, why didn't you start a story Bible? Because now I'm writing book 2 and I cannot remember things like what colour eyes the main character who appeared in the first book is supposed to have now she's reappearing in book 2. So, what is a story Bible and why might one be useful to you? What a story Bible essentially is a document, spreadsheet, database, whatever it might be, that gives you a reference book guide to the world of your story. So it is likely to have in it things like characters, settings, key dates that things happen in the story, and it's there so that when you're further on in the book and you cannot remember some tiny little detail, some secondary character's hair colour, or your character is having a birthday and you can't remember if you said they were 29 or 30 at the start of the book, so you don't know if they're 30 or 31 on this birthday they're about to have. Little details like that, it's that reference that you can go back on. Now, I don't usually make a story Bible for a standalone novel. I generally take the view that for a standalone, for a single book, by the time I've written it and edited it and read it through again and read it through again and read it through again, I will pick up on those little inconsistencies. And if I don't, my editor or my copy editor or my proofreader will. However, for a series, or for a standalone novel that's going to be particularly complex, I think it's really, really worth doing. It saves you a lot of time, it saves you a lot of confusion potentially. But I didn't do it because I'm an idiot. So if you think that you need a story Bible, let's have a little chat about some of the ways that you could do that. Number one, if you use Scrivener or similar to write your novels, a lot of this functionality is already in there in Scrivener, so you can include character bios and things like that within Scrivener. I'm not a Scrivener expert, I don't generally use it. I am planning to do a deep dive Scrivener video probably in the new year in January. I don't want to do it now. I don't want to spend time looking at Scrivener now because I'm halfway through writing a draft, and transitioning into Scrivener partway through a draft I think is just going to hurt my head. But in January, after I've submitted this book, I'm going to do a deep dive into Scrivener, and there'll be a video all about that coming up then. But if you're already a Scrivener user, you might have quite a lot of this functionality already in Scrivener or any other similar software that you might be using. If not, here's a couple of examples of how you can build a story Bible. So what I'm going to show you on screen now is actually from a book that I never actually submitted for publication. I wrote a full draft. I think I mentioned this in last week's video. I wrote a full draft and it just wasn't right. It was a bit over-egged. There were too many ideas. It didn't quite hang together. There's a better version of this book somewhere in the back of my head, still to be excavated, and one day I'll get to it. But this book, when I was writing the first draft, I recognised it was going to be quite complex. So there are multiple timelines, and there's a whole community of characters, because it is in both timelines, it's a story about community as much as about any individual. So I started a fairly basic story Bible whilst I was writing that novel. And the sheet I'm showing you is my character sheet, and you can see here the sorts of details that I was recording for each character. So at the most basic level, I'm recording whether this is a primary, a secondary or a tertiary character, how important they are in the story. If you're not sure what those terms mean, pop that in the comments below and I'm happy to make a video about different types of character within a narrative. If we come back up to one of our primary characters, our main character here, we've got age, we've got where she lives, physical description, and then what I'm really noting is how she changes over the story. And I've also got that other notes column at the end because this is while I'm still writing the manuscript. So there's still stuff I haven't decided. For tertiary character, I've got much less information, just the basics, but she's not going to change or evolve over the story, so I don't need that additional detail. So that's one way to do it. In a spreadsheet, recording things as you're going along. Recording things as you're going along is definitely the smart way to do that. And remembering that, particularly if you're doing it digitally, if you change your mind about something later in the story, if you think, oh, actually, no, Kate isn't going to be 45, she's going to be 40, I want her to be a little bit younger because X, Y, and Z, you can just change that in your spreadsheet and keep it up to date. On this occasion, though, I find myself having to do all of this work after the event. I should have done it while I was writing book one. Having not done it then, I definitely should have done it while I was editing book one as I went along, but I didn't. I'm an idiot. I'm a lazy girl who kicks things into the long grass and thinks, why do today what I can put off till tomorrow? And then all of a sudden it's tomorrow, and you're really, really wishing that your past self had had better work ethic. So what I'm doing this time for this story is a slightly different approach, and I am writing a physical story Bible. So I ordered this notebook, which is an indexed notebook, and I am building my story Bible in this now. Now I'm only doing kind of a couple of entries a day to try and just build it up over time. Ideally, I would have like a free week and I would sit down with the manuscript of book one and the sort of 55% of a manuscript of book two that I've already written, and I would fill all of this in one go. But that takes a full week out of the time I have to write the second book in the series, which is already a fairly tight deadline. So I just can't afford to do that. I really wish I could, but I can't. But I'm just filling this in as I go along. So just to find an entry that I've started but not completed, here we've got an entry for Emma, who is one of my main characters, and it tells me here her full name. It tells me which books she appears in. She appears in books one and two because she's one of the main characters. It tells me her occupation. It tells me who her parents are. Um, it tells me who her other relations are. So I've got her stepbrother and her sister-in-law listed here as well. And I can use that anytime I write something about Emma. So if I kind of think, oh, I really need Emma to have a conversation about this with someone, I can come here and I can look and I think, who is there in her world that she might talk about this to? It might be her mum, it might be her brother, it might be another friend who I haven't recorded yet. I'll also be adding to this any physical characteristics that I've already decided, any characters where I've specified an age or a birthday, that will get added in. And then as I build this up, my assumption as I write hopefully later books in the series, I'd really like this to be more than two books, but you never know. Um, as I write later books in the series, I'll be able to come to this and all that stuff will be there and I won't contradict myself, hopefully, as I go on. So I'll also be adding locations in this. This series of books are all set in London and a lot of the events happen at real places. So I'll be adding those locations, what I've used them for before. So if I come across the same location again in a later book, I'll be able to think, have they been there before? What happened there before? Will the reader remember that? Can I reference the fact that they've been here before, or do I need to put them somewhere different? I've also got some fictional locations. They will all be listed in here as well, and so will be any key dates and key events of the story. So this is going to become my Season for Love series Bible. So not just a story Bible, a full series Bible. And they have series Bibles on TV shows. It's not just novelists that do it. I believe sometimes really long-running TV shows, things like Coronation Street, soap operas that have gone on for decades, will actually have an employed archivist who will have all of the scripts and all of the records going all the way back, so that when a writer or a director comes in and says, you know, how old was this character's son when they died. They can look back, and that might have happened in an episode 10 years ago, but they were able to say, okay, so they were 21 when they died, and X, Y, and Z, these were the circumstances, this is what's relevant. So if a writer needs to refer back to that, all of that information is there, and hopefully they're not going to contradict the previous story. So that's the story Bible, or a series Bible. That's how it works. If you're setting out to write a series, I would really strongly consider making one, whether you do it physically, whether you do it digitally. It's entirely up to you, but I think it's well worth having. Hope that was useful. Just a short one this week. Do come back next week when I will be talking about some of my favourite books I've read from the past year. There might be some Christmas present recommendations in there for you, so do come back for that video, and I will see you then. In the meantime, like this video, please subscribe to the channel, and please, 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 if you have friends who might be interested in this sort of content, do share the channel with them. And if you have any questions or any requests at all for future videos, please pop them down below in the comments, and I will see you next time.